In a village in Norway, there is a woman who spent 60 years not knowing her last name. She knew the house she grew up in. She knew the family that raised her. She knew that the other children called her things she still won't repeat. Her name was Annie. And her story is not an exception. It is a system. There are people alive today whose names are fake, not changed, not forgotten, assigned by the state before they were old enough to remember anything else, before they could have possibly understood what a name means or what it costs to lose one. And some of them are still trying to find out who they really are. An estimated 200,000 children were born into or brought into a single program across occupied Europe between 1935 and 1945. Most of them still don't know. And if your family came from Norway, Poland, France, or Germany during that period, there is a real possibility you are connected to this story. The program was called Lebensborn, which translates in German as Spring of Life. I found this pattern across multiple countries, but Lebensborn was different. This wasn't a government failing to track children. This was a government engineering them. Here's what they recorded. In 1935, Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, became obsessed with what he called the German birth deficit. German women were not producing enough racially pure children. The solution? Create conditions that encouraged approved women to have as many children as possible, married or not. The SS established Lebensborn e.V., a registered charitable association. They built homes, registered births, assigned identities. Everything was documented. Himmler wrote in a 1939 directive, "Every mother of good blood is precious to me." By 1939, there were 8 homes across Germany, over 3,000 births on record, every single child's identity registered by name, by file, by number. Which makes what happened next much harder to explain. Here's the version they recorded, and then there's what actually happened. After 1941, the program changed, and in that change is the part I cannot explain away. The occupied territories were not just places where SS men were stationed and sometimes had relationships with local women. They became active identification zones. SS social workers, with forms, with charts, with point systems, were deployed across Poland, Ukraine, Yugoslavia, and Czechoslovakia with a specific assignment: find children. The criteria were documented: height, eye color, hair color, skull measurements. A child could score high enough to be classified as racially valuable. And once classified, the process began. SS Report 1942, Reichskommissariat Ukraine, filed under Case Reference AZ/SS/7-44. The child presents satisfactory racial characteristics. Germanization recommended. Family consent irrelevant. That last line, family consent irrelevant. And the system didn't just change names, it changed histories. Let me tell you about one of those children. His name was John. He was 4 years old in 1943 when SS officers came to his village in the Zamość region of Poland. The operation is documented. Archive reference, General Plan Ost, Implementation Records, November 1942 to March 1943. Over 100,000 Polish civilians expelled. Children separated from their parents on the spot. John was selected because of his blond hair. His mother reached for him. An SS officer pushed her back. That is in the record, too. A survivor testimony submitted to the Nuremberg trials, Exhibit 208. John was transported to a Lebensborn home in Germany. His name was changed to Hans. He was adopted by a family in Bavaria who were told he was a German orphan from a bombed city. The paperwork said his parents were deceased. He grew up speaking German as his only language. He had no memory of Poland, no memory of the village, no memory of a mother who had reached for him. His German mother was kind. His biological mother was alive. She would remain alive until 1987. She spent 44 years searching for a boy named John who no longer existed under that name in any record, anywhere. She searched through the Red Cross, through Polish authorities, through church registries. Every search returned the same answer: no record. Because there was no record. The record had been replaced. John, who had become Hans, found out what he was when he was 61 years old. A DNA database, a researcher in Warsaw, a file that had somehow survived 3 governments and 60 years. His mother had been dead for 9 years. He didn't lose his family. He lost the ability to ever find them. John was not alone. Estimates of children taken from occupied territories across Europe run into the hundreds of thousands, from Poland, Ukraine, Yugoslavia, Czech territories, the Baltic states. Renamed, placed with approved households, told their parents were dead, or that their parents had given them up, or simply told nothing at all and left to build a life on a foundation that was never theirs. And none of these children knew it was happening. To them, this was just their life. 3 milestones to understand how this grew. By 1939, 8 homes across Germany, thousands of births, all documented, all registered. A functioning institution on paper. By 1941, the program crosses borders: Norway, France, Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg. SS men are encouraged to father children with local women. The homes follow the occupation. By 1942, it stops waiting for births. It starts selecting children who already exist. Up until this point, everything was documented. After this, it wasn't. After the war, the reckoning was incomplete. The Nuremberg trials addressed the kidnapping program directly. Chief Prosecutor Telford Taylor called it, in 1947, a systematic attempt to destroy a people by taking their children. 8 officials were convicted. The children were not returned. The post-war German government did not launch a systematic search. Records from Lebensborn homes were classified, scattered, or quietly destroyed. The organization itself, registered as a charity, was dissolved without formal accounting of the children it had processed. Its administrators received light sentences, or were absorbed back into ordinary civilian life without ever being publicly identified as participants. And the children, now teenagers, now adults, some already raising children of their own, were left to navigate a question no one had prepared them for, inside countries that had no legal framework for answering it. Who are they? In Norway, where the program had been especially active, the Krigsbarn, the war children, faced something almost as devastating as the program itself. The Norwegian government, in the immediate post-war years, seriously considered mass deportation of these children to Germany, because they were half German, because their existence was a reminder the country did not want. Parliamentary records from 1945 show this was a formal, serious discussion at the highest levels. The children were called Tiskerbarn, German children. Their mothers were called collaborators. Annie was institutionalized as a child, not because she was mentally ill, because Norwegian authorities didn't know what else to do with a child no one claimed and everyone resented. She grew up in state care, without a family name, without a father's name on any document, without an answer to the most basic question a person can ask. She filed a lawsuit against the Norwegian government in 2004. The European Court of Human Rights acknowledged, in writing, that she and thousands like her had been subjected to discrimination, abuse, and state-sanctioned neglect. Then it ruled there was nothing to be done. On procedural grounds, no avenue remained, no compensation, no formal apology. The court recognized the wrong. It simply concluded that the wrong was not its problem to correct. Annie died in 2017. She never learned her father's full name. She carried that question for 90 years. She carried it to the end. And this is where the paper trail starts to break. I looked for a complete registry, one list, every child, every name, who they were born as, and what they were renamed. A master record of the entire program. It doesn't exist. Or it exists, and no government has confirmed where. The Bundesarchiv in Berlin holds some Lebensborn files. The Arolsen archives hold more. There are records in Oslo, in Warsaw, in Prague, but they are distributed across 6 countries and 4 languages, inside institutions that do not share a unified database and have no shared obligation to connect the pieces. And once the records are split like that, a person stops existing as a single identity. They become fragments. In 2006, the German organization Lebensborn, Traces of Life, estimated that fewer than 1 in 10 Lebensborn children had ever been identified. Fewer than 1 in 10. There are still people today, in their 70s, their 80s, who carry German names assigned to them by an SS administrator in 1943, who do not know their original names, their original countries, or the families they were separated from. Their parents are gone. The people who could have told them the truth are gone. And no institution has the legal obligation to help them search. And statistically, some of them are watching this right now, without realizing it. And the unsettling part is, most of them had no reason to question it. The story they were given fit. The documents were consistent. The family felt real. Because by the time they were old enough to ask questions, the original version of their life had been so thoroughly replaced that there was nothing left to find the edge of. If you feel that something doesn't quite fit, a gap in the story your parents told, a document with a slightly different birth date, a physical resemblance to no one in the family, the Arolsen archives in Germany have a free public search tool. You may find something. You may find nothing. But the question is worth asking. The 1890 census was destroyed by 4 words: no further value. The Lebensborn records were not destroyed. They were distributed across so many institutions, in so many countries, in so many languages, that finding any single child's complete story requires a researcher, a lawyer, a DNA lab, and years. The effect is the same. The person does not exist in any single place that can be searched. Jan became Hans and spent 61 years not knowing he was Jan. He found out, through a database, a researcher, a file that should have been destroyed but wasn't. He found out a lifetime too late. This wasn't chaos, it was policy, and the system worked. Which means the question is not why it happened then. The question is, what else is designed the same way? That story starts with a year that was supposed to have been forgotten. In 536 A.D., the sun disappeared for 18 months. Crops failed. Temperatures collapsed. Entire civilizations unraveled within a single decade. And the historians who witnessed it, who documented it in real time, were later reclassified as poets, so their testimony could be dismissed as metaphor and not counted as evidence. We'll come back to that.